All right. Well, thank you. So Zoom called me about 2 months ago, and they asked if I'd like to come and talk about what Travelers has been doing with learning and implementing Zoom. And I jumped at the chance. I said, yeah, absolutely. We're so excited about the progress we made. I'd love to tell the story of where we started, where we're going, our journey. But then naturally, over the last couple weeks, just the idea of coming here and talking to you guys, the stress builds up, right? You're going to be on stage. I know it wasn't main stage, but it's stressful. So I figured out a way to combat that. I just said to myself, I'm coming from Hartford, Connecticut. I'm flying across the country. I'm going to come up there. I'm going to tell my story. And even if I split these tight jeans that I was told to wear, it's not a big deal because I don't know any of you. And then tomorrow I'll get a selfie with Snoop Dogg. I'll go home and tell everybody it was a blast. And then about a week ago, they let me know that they're streaming this over Zoom webinar. And my coworkers found that out, and now there's a viewing party. So this may be the last time I get to talk about my content ever again. So I just want to let you know it's been my pleasure if I don't see you again next year. So innovating in L&D, a quick bit about myself. My name is Ben. I mentioned I'm from Travelers. I've been with Travelers just shy of 20 years. And in that time, I've done project management, process improvement, and then started to lead different technology and operations teams. And all the while, I've always had a finger or toe in audiovisual and content and collaboration, and whether or not it was my job responsibility. And just because I love it so much, it's been so exciting to see where we were and where we're going and the evolution of that. It's a passion of mine. And I know you're thinking, now this guy needs a life, and I do. But I really do think it's exciting. I mean, coming off of that keynote just now, I feel like everything I'm going to show you is already old news, and I can't wait to get back and implement some of that. But about 5 years ago, I was given the opportunity to move out of the main campus and just up the road to Windsor, Connecticut, where we have what we call Claim University. And Claim University is a campus that is designed and dedicated to creating the most knowledgeable claim professionals in the business. We decided that that really is a competitive advantage for Travelers. And in a nutshell, the best way to describe it for me, and I don't think Travelers will put this on their marketing sheets, is that it's insurance Disney World. So let me just kind of put into context a little bit more about the Claim University campus. This is our campus in Windsor. It's a 200,000 square foot building. And within the four walls, we have hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, dump trucks, tractor trailer trucks, refrigerated box trucks. We've got the yellow construction equipment that we use on job sites. And then we move into property. Right down the hall from my office, I've got 2 freestanding homes in the building. And these are real homes. They're outfitted. They're running water and electricity. They're ready for a sleepover, a barbecue right there in front. And we even have a medical lab where we have durable medical goods, a pharmacy, and deliver technical training to over 500 nurse professionals in the workers' compensation and general liability groups. And we're also co-located with our National Catastrophe Center, which you just saw there. And that's where hundreds of dedicated claim professionals organize a calculated response to massive scale events, like a hurricane approaching North America. So awesome opportunity, and over the years, I'd had the experience of doing hundreds and hundreds of conference rooms, training rooms, rooms dedicated to learning and multi-purpose, and even a couple auditoriums. So when I got up to Claim University, it was fastly approaching its 10-year anniversary. And all of the technology in the building was original. And so, as most of you know, 10 years in the audiovisual and collaboration space is probably like 3 lifetimes. And then, again, after the keynote this morning, it's probably like 6 lifetimes. So we had a challenge, but we were up for that challenge with our experience. But the first thing we needed to do was build a team, and we did. And we've got some folks on our technology team at Claim University that are incredible and can do this far better than I ever could. But the first thing we wanted to do is figure out the personas of the folks that we were going to think about when we implemented new technology in our classrooms to deliver this training. And that's when it became real that this wasn't going to be like anything else we've ever done. And it all boils down to the pace of change. And it wasn't the pace of change in the audiovisual and collaboration technology, because we know that, that's amazing. It was actually the pace of change in technology that our claim professionals were going to have to learn. The tools that they were going to be using to do their jobs was changing so rapidly. A quick example would be a homeowner's claim. You go back just 5 years ago, and that claim professional might visit your home, and they've got a series of tools to do their job. They might show up with an SUV, a ladder. It's not a very big ladder. I don't know what kind of roofs they ever thought they were going to get on, but a small ladder. We don't want them up on high ladders. Clipboards, digital cameras, flip phones, tape measures, you name it. They had it. And that was all to do that job. Just fast forward 36 months, and now all these claim professionals just show up with two things: an iPhone loaded with some really amazing apps and a drone. So now how do we get a claim workforce of over 12,000 people ready for the future to understand those tools, to master those tools, and to be able to use them in real time? We had to rethink the way we were going to train, and we knew it was going to have to be done in the process of work and not separate spiked out training. I mentioned we had 12,000 folks just in claim alone. So at Claim University, logistically, we were flying 5,000, 6,000 claim professionals up to the campus every year for live training in our labs. And that's a big number. That's a big operational expense. There's a lot of travel there. They made a great reference to the environment earlier. There's that too. We know there's always going to be a time for live learning. There's still a need for that, and with the investments we've made in our lab, we know there'll still be a place. But that's not everything. So we had to look for the classrooms of the future. So what's in our classrooms of the future? Well, first we started with our hybrid model. We knew we'd still have some live folks, but we needed to start to bring in virtual learners. So just a quick sample of what we've got in one of our new classrooms of the future. So a few shots. You'll notice our teacher station. We've got multiple monitors on our teacher station. One is the far end. What are you seeing? What are the virtual folks seeing? You want to make sure that the experience that they're having, the view that they have of you and your learners, is really what you were hoping they wanted, because it all comes down to engagement. If your learners, your virtual learners, aren't engaged, it falls off very quickly. In addition, there's an annotation tablet. Whether you're showing videos or it's policy language or technical training, to be able to annotate in real time over that, again, drives just a better experience so that your virtual participants are engaged. And then lastly, the control panel, the glass. So I like to point out the two things with the control panel and also sound. I'll start with sound. Here's just a quick shot of the clock audio. And we have mobile furniture. When you have invested real estate, you need to maximize the way you use that real estate. So while we love to do dedicated learning in all of our rooms all the time, we know we're going to just have to use them for meetings and other things. So our furniture is mobile. We'd love to be able to put microphones in the tables and make those fixed, because the closer we can get those mics to people's mouths, the better. But they're in the ceiling, and we spend a lot of time calibrating those. In our larger spaces, we also make sure we have in-room lift. Again, that goes back to engagement. When you have live learners in the back of the room asking questions, you not only want your facilitator to hear it clearly, but you want your virtual participants to be able to hear that clearly. Engagement. Q&A is probably one of the most important things we have. When a student asks a facilitator or a subject matter expert a question and they get that great 2-3 minute dialogue, that can sometimes be more rich than any of the formal content you're going to deliver over the course of a day or even multiple days. The user interface, we've had different manufacturers over the years. They all do a wonderful job. Right now, we're using Extron for two reasons. One, we're fortunate enough to have 3 folks dedicated to audiovisual support within this campus. And just recently, all 3 of them have become certified in Extron, and they can code, they can do the break fix. But what's really important about that is the time they spend with your facilitators, the people delivering your content, so that they can customize those panels to be as easy as possible for what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis in the room. So we have a quick link to Zoom. It's easy to dial in your virtual participants. So those 2 things I would really focus on, and it keeps your facilitator from having to worry about the AV so much and focus on the content that they really want to deliver. So then we went with studios. So there's an evolution with our studios. We weren't able to just go full in like the one you see on the screen. We started with a laptop, a webcam, and a little podium like this with some old rickety wheels that needed some grease. It was, it was pretty low grade. But it allowed us to figure out how to do it. And then we just added a camcorder to that laptop. And that was a little better. Audio still wasn't great. And then we hit a brick wall. We hit a brick wall because we were trying to deliver the video over our standard enterprise collaboration system. And so that's great for phone calls, that's great for quick chats, but it wasn't designed to do the deep virtual learning that we wanted to do with the high definition audio and the great video, and to be able to even stream a video, that was mind blowing. There's no way we're going to be able to play like a minute or a 2-minute video over a class, over the content system. That's when we found Zoom. And so it's pretty rare when you're able to bring in a product into your ecosystem, your learning ecosystem, and it just works. And it did, it just worked on day one. And that allowed us to rapidly change our investment model and our approach to the hardware side of things, because we knew we had to upgrade the hardware in order to make the experience worthwhile. But we couldn't do that if we couldn't actually get the content to the learners. So that's what Zoom allowed us to do. So a lot of our content got redesigned. We have designers and we have developers and also our facilitator, subject matter experts within one ecosystem. And in collaboration with all of them and our technology folks, we developed our studios. So our studios have Polycom products. These are the Polycom director cams. So they're PTC cameras, and they do auto tracking. And we went with that because, as you can see, we kind of had that news desk there. Our facilitators sit, they stand, they might move over to a prop or a whiteboard that they'll use within class. The auto tracking works fabulous on that. And if they already know and deliver the class frequently, they may actually even turn that off and set a couple presets. And that goes back to the importance of that touch panel so that it's easy to navigate your presets. The screen cluster. Right now, we've got the 4 in a cluster. That's version 2.0. We started, it went horizontally across with the cameras in the middle, and we found that our facilitators were just looking back and forth like this the whole day and never making eye contact. So we bring them together, mount the cameras in the middle. The same concept to delivering that all virtual experience, we needed to be able to take the incredible investment that we were fortunate enough to have in our labs, the property and auto and medical labs, heavy equipment, and bring those to the learners. But how would we take that rich environment and deliver it over a product even like Zoom? So we took this approach with mobile studios. We changed up the cameras a little bit. We went with 4K cameras. Our teachers' desks is the same, where it has 4 screens, just like the mobile studio. So you can see your participants, you can see your content, and maybe an off-air producer can help you with back chats and things like that. Not every question needs to interrupt the flow of class. Again, we got creative with cameras. We went with 4K cameras that are on tripods. We can take those off. We can move them around. We want to be able to get into our houses, around the cars, upstairs, things like that. And then the mini cams on those mounts, we can put those in walls. We can look at water damage. We can put those in a vehicle's hood, look at some issues inside and under the hood. We can bring them into our property lab. You can see here we're working on photovoltaics. We'll set up those screens around, again, having your virtual learners there and having good audio. From an audio perspective in our labs, we got creative. We tried a few different things. We actually went with the wireless lav mics like I'm using right now, and then the Secret Service earpiece so that you can have a good dialogue with all your virtual learners and it's not echoing all over your class. Here's another example within auto. Not every one of our learners is always going to be at their desks. We had to account for that. What would that experience be like? Not only not at their desk, maybe they're not even at home. In claim, oftentimes these folks are on the road, they're in hotel rooms, or they might even be in a parked car. So we wanted to make sure we were meeting them where they were going to learn. So mobile phones. We take all that same technology and we put it in our really large spaces. They blew this out of the water this morning when they made that room the biggest virtual Zoom room ever. But we've done that with our auditorium too, to an extent. We take the PTZ cameras, We take the Zoom platform. Everything we do from a learning perspective is now over our Zoom platform. And we bring that to our auditoriums. This example was an innovation jam. And so we'll have technology teams get together, and they're all over the country, and they're getting so many things built, and then they're doing deliveries and presenting on what they've done, and we're able to stream that out across the entire 30,000 plus enterprise, no matter where you're located. So that's a little bit about the audio-visual, and there's a whole ecosystem when it comes to this technology and learning. There's learner experience platforms, there's LMSs. I mean, we can go on and on about those types of things, but today I wanted to focus a little bit on the technology we're using with Zoom, how it's hardware agnostic, and some of the creativity we used around that. But when we started to leverage the Zoom platform, there's another thing that we really started to notice, and that was we needed to get our facilitators, our subject matter experts that have been delivering this content so well for so many years in a live setting, up to speed on virtual delivery. And so while Zoom makes it incredibly easy to navigate their platforms, to annotate, to put people in breakout rooms, which was like amazing for us because we've been doing breakout tables live for years, but to randomly send your groups into breakout spaces, or to decide who goes in, and then to jump around and be able to say, hey, how's it going? What can I answer for you? Are you guys on track? And then seamlessly bring everybody together. I think we've all tried to navigate that in different ways by sending out a million different invites, and then some people get lost in the cyberspace, right, and never make it back to the main meeting. So all of that's incredible, but it's a different facilitation mode, right? So even if you were someone that was delivering content for years and years with a phone and PowerPoints, it's still not the same. When you start to bring in video into the game, how do you keep engagement high? How do you look for struggling learners? What are those cues? Is it just asking questions? Is it just trying to decipher their mood by their faces? There's a lot to it, and it's a skill that needs to be learned. We actually reached out to a local university, and we have a consultant, and we've started to run classes and train the trainers so that our facilitation skills can start to evolve. And it's a work in progress, and we're getting better and better at it. And as the technology gets easier, that helps too. But it's been a watch out for us, so I wanted to share it with you guys. So I had a conversation with Anne-Marie from Zoom a couple weeks ago as we were preparing for this, and we were talking just anecdotally about some of the other things we've heard just at Travelers with using the Zoom platform. And I said, Zoom is contagious. And I don't think Zoom will use that. The marketing team probably will stay away from the word contagious. But for us, it's contagious. I mean, we started to use it in so many different ways. We're flying drones. We have a drone program where we have over 600 certified UAS drone pilots. And to be able to throw a drone up in the air and say, hey, here's what I'm experiencing with another trainer, and then just share your screen on the iPhone, which is the controller of the drone, over Zoom, and walk through that's really amazing. So it's experiments like that have been so exciting. So we did a good job with bringing our labs to the field. But I got a chance to talk to one of my colleagues over in risk control a few weeks ago. And she mentioned some of the same ways that Zoom has been contagious for them. This is in our lab. This is a machine safety lab that we contract with, and our risk control group takes our customers and gets them to this lab where they have this industrial equipment to make sure they're running their factories more in a safe way. Well, it was working so well live, but it was starting to work so well virtually because all we did was come in and just facilitated, hey guys, we can do this virtually if you can't make it there. Well, big light bulb goes off for this machine safety company and said, well, why wouldn't we just do that ourselves? So recently they've become Zoom customers, and now when you go to their website, there's an interactive way that you can contract their services, which is really exciting. Within our learning organization, we conduct large meetings with a dispensed workforce. So that's nothing new to anyone in this room that already is using Zoom. But what's been really cool recently in the last year, quick show of hands, who's agile? Who's going agile? Who's thinking about agile? Yeah, so are we. And so we are pretty deep into an agile experiment, and we're a learning organization. We're not software developers, we're not IT. So we knew it was going to be different, and we'd have to bend some of the rules here and there. But one of the things our coaches were saying was that it'd be great if everyone can be around the same table, because there's a lot of relationships that need to be built in order to be good team members with Agile. That wasn't going to be able to happen for us. We do have a dispensed workforce. We're all over the country. Had it not been for Zoom, making sure we have camera on, building trust, we've got some really amazing teams, and we've built some amazing relationships on those teams, and we are really starting to do some cool work with that. So I just wanted to share that it doesn't have to always be live. Zoom has really closed the gap there. I mentioned when I talked about Claim University earlier, our National Catastrophe Center. It is co-located with us. This is really incredible. Travelers is the only carrier that uses all of its own employees to respond to the large-scale catastrophes. They don't hire third-party adjusters. So there's an operational mechanism there that's really remarkable to be able to scale employees to respond to those things and get them into the heart of where the disaster is. Well, recently, we've started to use Zoom in that space too. So collaborating with hundreds of claim professionals all around the country, figuring out hotels, logistics, cars, fuel, water, IT, all of that. It's all become a much more streamlined approach by using Zoom. A couple more anecdotal things that have come out of our training organization with risk control that they just recently shared. So with risk control, they have an air quality testing kit that we send out to customers. It comes with quite a few instructions. Sometimes folks get it, sometimes they don't. They'll need assistance. Doing that over the phone with a test kit can be a little difficult. Now we just fire a Zoom link, and we're able to work through that, get them up and running fast. The customer experience there, that's so much better, and we get our test results back so much faster. And another cool thing that they're doing is ergonomic evaluations. That was a lengthy process and additional cost involved, because we'd have to schedule the appointment, we'd have to go out there, we'd have to do the measurements, come back, do the assessment, and give a recommendation. Well, now that can be done over mobile phones. And using the mobile phone, we can actually have them take the measurements and get the results a little bit faster. So I know I went through that a little quick, but I can't tell you enough in my wrap up here. We were able to do all these cool things. We were able to build these studios. They're a sizable investment for us. We were able to build the mobile studios, and we have a roadmap for the future for all of our classrooms. But we're able to fund that with primarily reduced travel savings. And when we approached this endeavor, it wasn't a cost savings play. It was, how do we bring the labs to the field? How do we meet the learners where they need to learn in the time of need? That was our focus. The experience of the learner was our true focus. And the side effect has been operational savings, like in travel. So not having to fly all your folks to your home office or your labs or whatever your situation might be has been great. We have 6 people that are a mini travel agency. So from an operational perspective and capacity play, we've been able to free up a lot of their times to do other things, to help facilitate learners and get them into the right classes and redirect their talents. And we've been fortunate enough to have that support with our senior leadership. But it was through these trials and these experiments and tests that we were able to make all that happen. So I appreciate your time. I hope some of this is relevant, and I'd love to have more conversations with each of you afterwards to learn what progress you've made on this front, and hopefully we can share some stories and make some progress together. Thank you. Did we have any questions? There are 2 mics if you did.
I have a couple of questions, actually.
Sure.
The first is, do you require, I noticed all the participants had their video on. Is that a requirement that you put on them, is to have the video on?
I would say we deeply influence it.
Okay.
You know, it's not hard and fast, but we really do try to get you to do that. We'll set up those calls ahead of time just to get you prepared. We send out welcome notes to our students, and within that welcome letter, it does say we'd really like you to use your video. And we'll push throughout the class. We know sometimes there's some situations where you can't do it, but we absolutely push that. It does raise engagement, and it does build trust.
And so for the meetings, I saw that a lot of people had headsets and microphone devices. I assume you ask them to have something like that or recommend some things?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So that's part of the welcome letter. We try to make sure we have everyone understand what type of technology they're going to need to participate in the learning. Headsets is one of those. Make sure you have the laptop. But that goes to a great point about design. When you're redesigning your content or designing new content, you, as a designer or the facilitator, may have access to multiple screens. You know, you might have a docking station. But if you have a remote workforce and you haven't provided them with multiple monitors, you might want to start to think about what their experience is going to be. It sounds simple, but to only be able to see the content you're sharing and then a small video box isn't as rich as having your facilitator on one screen and your content on another. But we have a recommended list of technologies. Headsets is one of those. Our corporation does supply all of our employees with headsets. And then some choose to just use Apple iPhone, things like that.
Earbuds, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the last question is the difference between a meeting, let's say, or even a large group meeting, and your classroom where you have a live audience in the studio and then a remote audience. Do you do those as webinars or as meetings? And do you allow the remote learners to then audio in, or do they have to text their questions?
Yeah, good question. If it's learning and there's going to be collaboration, we won't do it as a webinar. We'll just do it as a regular Zoom meeting because we really want to drive that Q&A and having that dialogue. There'll still be a lot of people that don't want to speak up. If it's 200, 300, 400 people on the call, nobody wants to be the first. So they'll go into the back chat first, and then we may pull from the back chat and ask that question and ask if they could elaborate a little bit more on that. But from a learning perspective, we like to keep it a meeting so that you do have that Q&A. In a large room like the auditorium we were showing, we would go with handheld mics at the tables and things like that. We'd remind everyone to use those. In a classroom setting, that clock audio, that's where the importance of audio comes in. Having that be designed so that every table and every learner can be heard, whether they can speak loudly or they're going to be soft, that's super important too. We'll go to webinar if we start to get several hundred people, but we really want to control the question, and it's more a talking head and a presentation.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have two questions. One, with your remote learners, how are you equipping them with the knowledge they need to engage in this? You mentioned some of the times they're not at their desk, they're in areas where you may or may not have control over the network. So how are you equipping them with the knowledge to sustain that remote technology, and more importantly, how are you supporting them?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So Zoom has been introduced at Travelers. Right now, it's not the full-blown enterprise collaboration system that we use day to day for regular meetings. It's actually pretty much dedicated to learning right now. So we'll send out links ahead of time. We'll ask people. We have user guides. We've taken some of the Zoom user guide, the one-pagers, and we've also made some of our own that are even shorter, that are more specific to the classes we're driving, the nuances within our system, because we have to click an extra button here to get security access, or we might have to navigate through a few different pages. So we've customized those. We've made them easy and quick to read with icons. Those go out in our welcome letters to our students too. We're making sure they get ahead of time, and we're suggesting that they click on these links to make sure that they launch. We do have Zoom tied into our enterprise help desk too, so folks can call that if they're having issues. But we have found that it's been pretty agnostic, and it does work on company-issued iPhones, personal iPhones, but on laptops, iPads. We can really meet them with any device that they'd like to do. Sometimes I'll actually pull out a personal device if I'm in an airport or traveling, and it may just be a better experience for me to use my own personal iPad.
Okay, nice. And then lastly, you mentioned the shying away from webinars because you want to promote the Q&A session. How are you facilitating, and I don't know how large your remote learning sessions are, but in examples where we have let's say a couple hundred people, that's a typical scenario for a webinar, but we want to promote a Q&A session. How are you facilitating the moderation of those Q&As?
Yeah, so our learning is going to be a lot smaller numbers. We want to have a rich dialogue. We want to give everybody a chance. So our typical class size is around 20.
Oh,
So we're running quite a few classes. We have quite a few facilitators spaced to handle the capacity of frequency around that model. We probably wouldn't be doing an interactive learning session with more than 25 to 30 folks. So when you have those smaller numbers, it's really easy for your facilitator and a co-facilitator to help moderate those. Sometimes we'll have the questions come in through the back chat first, and we'll start to answer like some of those through back chat, and we'll queue up some of the more relevant questions, ones we think that everyone's going to want to hear. But in those smaller numbers, it's a lot easier to manage. One thing, though, I will add, and this is an amazing Zoom feature, and it just sounds like it's going to get even easier after the keynote, is the importance of Q&A. Again, I can't stress that enough. When a student asks a question that everybody wants to know the answer to, if your class size is 25 to 30, yeah, those 25 to 30 people benefit, great. But you've got a huge workforce that you want to get that same dialogue out to. If you're recording these, and you're recording those segments, and your facilitator can just go back and remember, man, I had a great dialogue with a student today. I wish everyone heard it. We'll go back to that recording. We'll cut that snippet out. We'll make it look good, and we'll send that out to the larger workforce so everyone can benefit from that Q&A.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, great question. So we're in the process of, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, sure. So are we measuring the efficiency of the virtual learner's experience compared to the live experience, right? So we are, and we're doing it in a bunch of different ways. And we're new at this too. We're about a year and a half into really going full out, but we're doing it in a few different ways. One, we've always sent out learner experience surveys after all live classes. So we're still doing that, and that survey goes out to live and learners. And so we're getting that information back, and we've had to change the questions, and we continue to change the questions to make sure they're relevant to the content we're delivering and the experiences people are having. We've also onboarded in recent years a learner experience director, someone that has a deep background in collecting this type of information, analyzing it, and really getting to the truth of what the experiences are, and then changing our delivery in real time to make sure that we're keeping folks engaged. So we'll have focus groups as well. So we'll target focus groups that might be hybrid, where there was live learners and virtual, and compare how that experience is to virtual delivery, as opposed to just virtual-only delivery. A quick anecdote to that is, in 2018, towards the end of 2018, Travelers picked up one of the largest accounts it ever had in history. And the window to get about 150 dedicated personnel to that account trained was, well, originally we were told 30 to 60 days. It was really about 2.5 weeks. And so the logistics of doing that in person were just, we knew right away that wasn't going to happen. So we leveraged the mobile studios, and we delivered that content pretty seamlessly virtually, and the feedback had been incredible. The disruption to people's lives, if we had done that live, standing in TSA lines, losing baggage, staying in hotel rooms and residence inns over multiple days, missing kids' families' events and sports events and things like that. The feedback, it was rave reviews, and that we were able to deliver that in succinct chunks within their work schedules, so that they weren't getting overwhelmed with coming back to their desks to millions of emails. All around fabulous experience, and we continue to develop how we collect learner experience. It does go to learner experience platforms, and there's ways you can start to deliver and get more data and analytics through that too.
So being on the IT end, I'm aware there's dashboards with like how focused people are and who's in the meeting. Any tips on how to use the information on dashboard to make things more efficient, or how you're tailoring training?
Yeah, so I've played with the dashboards a little bit, but I haven't spent a lot of time actually reviewing that information. We're really leaving it to our facilitators to make sure that the experience and the engagement is high. Again, I think that goes back to the numbers. If you start to get wide scale with numbers and you get a little like crazy with how many folks you have in a class, I think those dashboards are going to be really, really important. But when you keep it to 10, 15, or 20 people within a class, I think it's a little more reasonable to say to a facilitator or a subject matter expert that's delivering the content, how high is your engagement? One of the things the dashboard did help in the early stages was to understand what our remote users were using for technology. Were they coming in on their corporate laptops, or were they using phones, iPads? Did they have headsets? That dashboard tells you all of that, and that allowed us to work with our claim IT department to say, hey, our workforce seems to be lacking with headsets. Have we fully distributed all the headsets? Or, people seem to prefer to do this on their iPhone. Why is that? Is it an experience thing? So that's where we got some of the initial feedback. But I think as we get further down the line, we'll be able to look at those dashboards a little more.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So when you say you're cutting a piece of the recording and saving that for a specific group, what is the technology you're using to do that? Is that just within Zoom, or are you using a separate video maker? And then also, is that easier to do when you're recording to a file versus recording to the cloud, or does it matter?
Good question. So it doesn't seem to matter. Most of the recordings we do go to the cloud with unlimited cloud storage. That seems to be the way we'd like to do that. We did actually just add a lead videographer to our team. With the ability to stream video over this platform and have it look so good, we're really starting to move towards that YouTube model of delivery with some of our classes. So we want to be able to stream short pieces of video. That's the way the learners really want to learn today. So we'll use a simple movie maker. And actually, we haven't even standardized. We do have designers and developers that do amazing video work themselves. Some of them use Adobe. Some of them will just use Movie Maker. And we'll pull those down from cloud recordings and make those snippets happen. And to that, too, we'll actually pre-plan a recording, right? So we'll have maybe an opportunity to get on a senior leader's calendar that can really draw some insight and give some people some direction about a particular topic. And we'll set up a call with one of our leaders and one of the senior leaders, and we'll just record that. And then to be able to have that cool dialogue between two leaders and then share that at an all-hands meeting or something like that, that's been really impactful, and people have appreciated the insight, and they feel like they've been added to the group.
I'm curious, what kind of training did you provide to the educators, like technical training, and do you have a team of technicians that help support them during these training sessions, or have they been mostly self-sufficient?
Yes to all of that. Okay, no, so it depends on the level of severity in the class, for sure. So our goal when we built the classrooms in the studios was to make them as self-sufficient, operator, ease, put all that in mind so that we wouldn't have to have a full-time employee going to every class. And for the most part, we've been very successful with that. I showed you the director cams and things like that. That's one example of how we're able to leverage those. We're lucky enough within our claim organization to have full-time dedicated Travelers employees delivering our content. And so those folks using these spaces every day, they do get training. They get to feel more comfortable with the technology in the room, and then it becomes pretty seamless. And they can sometimes get better than we are at some of it because they use it a lot more than we do. There's other learning organizations that we're partnering with across Travelers that don't have their own designer, developer, and facilitators. They're hiring outside companies to come in and maybe do IT classes, right? And they've never even been in our building before. They need technical help. We've been in that 200,000 square foot building across maybe 15 or so large-scale classrooms. We have 3 dedicated audiovisual professionals. And so those guys are meeting folks before the meetings or the learnings start. They're there for break fix. They're there for support all day long. When we do something really, really technical or large scale, we'll have those guys in there. We'll bring in those 4K cameras, and we'll have them operating cameras, checking mics, doing sound, and bringing that all together. Yeah. So we're trying to find the right balance for everything, with the ultimate goal of ease of use and not having to have someone there. Yep. Well, this was a blast. Thanks, everybody. If there's no more questions, I really appreciate you listening to our story.